Lesson 2 introduces ITIL's 4 functions, and this lesson contains 5 objectives. First, we'll explain the organizational overlap of ITIL's 4 functions. Next, we'll quickly explore the typical duties of the technical management function, the application management function, and the IT operations management function. We'll finish up by learning about the role and objectives of the service desk, as well as the 3 ways to organize one, depending on the size and structure of your company. In our first chapter of this video mentor, we learn the definition of a function. To review, functions are self-contained units of organizations specialized to perform certain types of work and are responsible for specific outcomes. The service desk is a great example of a function. It's a self-contained unit of an organization, meaning they all work together towards the same goal, which is, of course, interfacing with users, and they use the same tools, and they typically have the same budget. In ITIL version 3, we discuss 4 functions: the service desk, technical management, application management, and IT operations management. This chart you see on the right is not a suggested organizational chart. We're just trying to show you what types of folks would be lumped into each function. We'll zoom in on each function on the next few slides as we talk about each function. We have a function called technical management. The image on the right shows that the types of people we lump into this generic ITIL function are the techie, geeky folks who babysit mainframe, servers, networks, storage, databases, directory services, even your desktop folks. People in the technical management function are the hands-on, skilled resources who support and operate the IT infrastructure day to day, but they're also the ones who help design and transition it as well, and will also help continually improve it. Hopefully you recognize the lifecycle words in there. You'll see them in bold. Application management is very similar to technical management, except that instead of managing servers and networks, these folks manage the applications throughout their application lifecycle. During the service design phase, application management helps us answer the question, should we buy an application or should we build this application in-house? Application management members are not necessarily application developers. Think of application management as the support team instead. On this slide, you'll see in italics that application management helps answer the question, should we buy or build an application? So you'll want to remember that. IT operations management is another function, and this one's a little unusual for a few reasons. First, it's unusual because on the exam you might see that they left off the IT, so be on the lookout. On the exam, IT operations management and plain old operations management are the exact same thing. Ditto for IT operations control and plain old operations control. I put the IT in parentheses here on this slide to remind you, and I also put a reminder in the book that came with this DVD. But what does IT operations management do? IT operations management performs the daily operational behind-the-scenes activities that are necessary to maintain the status quo. So when you think about IT operations management, just think behind the scenes. In some organizations, this is a single centralized department, while in others, some activities and staff are centralized and some are provided by other departments or teams. IT operations management is made up of 2 little subgroups, and these are IT operations control, which is generally staffed by shifts of operators who live in an operations bridge or a network operations center. These folks oversee the execution of routine operational tasks, things like batch job scheduling, handling the backups, swapping out your backup tapes and getting them stored off-site, print and output management, and some maintenance activities. On the slide, you'll see that oversees the execution and monitoring of the operational activities and events in the IT infrastructure is in italics, so get familiar with that phrase. Also, don't put too much emphasis on the phrase oversees. We don't mean overseas in the they're your boss and we'll write your performance review kind of way. They oversee the execution of the activities, meaning they either do the activities themselves or they hang out and just make sure that the batch job ran. The other subgroup of IT operations management is facilities management. Facilities management is made up of folks who typically wear tool belts and they manage the physical IT environment. Things like cabling, HVAC systems, usually data centers or computer rooms. See how data centers is in italics? For some reason, whenever you see data center on an exam, they're almost always talking about facilities management. The diagram here on the right shows that there is some overlap between technical management, application management, and IT operations management. This is partly because IT operations management often takes their direction from technical management and application management. And now it's time to talk about our good friend, the service desk. The service desk is a functional unit with a number of people dedicated to dealing with a variety of service events, usually via the telephone, but also via email, a web interface, or a self-service portal. They are the one-stop shopping, single point of contact for all end-user issues, and they are also a coordination and handoff point for several processes as well. The service desk is the only function that's allowed to talk to end users. If an end user's PC blows up, they call the service desk only. They don't call the desktop guy directly. They don't stop a techie in the hallway. They contact the service desk, and that's it. By making the service desk the single point of contact, this then frees up the second, third, and 12th line techies to work on their techie stuff instead of trying to chase down and or fight off end users. The service desk is also the only way for IT to get messages out to the end users. Experiencing a site outage? The network tech shouldn't send out the Blasto email to the end user community. Instead, the network tech should send it to the service desk, and the service desk will send it out on their behalf. The service desk should be the only voice of IT that the users hear. The service desk mostly does the process of incident management, which we'll soon learn is the process for restoring service ASAP when stuff breaks. But the service desk will also do some request fulfillment, which is a process that handles simple questions and small standard changes. The service desk also interfaces with service level management, since the service desk does a lot of SLA enforcement as they bounce tickets back and forth between IT teams. The service desk is the face of IT to all end users, so it's important that the personnel fulfilling the role are effectively trained and have great customer service skills. The main objectives of the service desk are pretty intuitive. First, they log all relevant incident and service request details in the CMS. Now, the reason why we say the CMS is because there's no official ITIL-titled tool called the Incident Management Database or the Service Request Database. So when a specific tool doesn't exist in ITIL, we just say generically that it's stored in the CMS. If you need some reinforcement here, just look in the book in Chapter 4, Lesson 2, which is Service Asset and Configuration Management, and you'll see an image of the CMS there. The text beneath that image explains it nicely. Next, the service desk also provides first-line investigation and diagnosis for incidents, and then escalates the tickets that it can't resolve on the first shot. They also keep users up to date on what the latest progress is on their incidents and tickets, and they'll also close all resolved incidents and service requests. On the previous slide, I said that the service desk is the single point of contact for users to contact IT, and they are also the only way for IT to get messages out to end users. So when a network technician, for example, resolves a ticket, they mark the ticket as resolved, which then notifies the service desk to call the user back and let the user know that the work was completed. If the user is happy with the results, then the service desk only closes the ticket. So there's a difference between ticket resolution and ticket closure. And we'll talk more about this when we get to the incident management process. Service desks can be structured in three main ways: local, central, and virtual. A local service desk is located at the same site as the users that it serves. If your company has 12 branches or 12 sites, then you will have 12 independently running service desks. Since these service desks are independent, if a user accidentally calls the service desk of another site, they might not be able to get assistance, since these service desks all use their own individual CMSs. Centralized service desks are probably the most popular. This is where you have one service desk that provides assistance to all users regardless of where those users are located. I kind of think of it looking like a fried egg, where the centralized service desk is in the middle, is the yolk, and then your users sit in the egg white. It doesn't matter where your users are located, they're always calling this one centralized location. If you have 12 branches or locations, you'll still have one service desk. If the user at one of these sites needs hands-on assistance, then someone close to their location will be dispatched to help them out. Our third kind of service desk configuration is called a virtual service desk, and this is where users call into a central number and the call is dispatched to service desk agents that can be located anywhere in this city, state, country, or world. Some companies leverage this model when they have users who need 24/7 support. In those cases, they may choose to take a follow the sun approach, which is where calls are routed wherever it's regular business hours in the world. Other companies use the virtual service desk model if they need to dispatch calls to parts of the world where people speak a certain language. Or, more and more US-based companies are allowing call center representatives to work from their homes using voice-over IP telephony. Even if they all live within the same city, it helps the company keep their overhead costs down. For the exam, you'll need to remember these types of service desk configurations. We have local, central, virtual, and also follow the sun. The roles within the service desk can vary depending on the size of your service desk. You will, of course, have service desk analysts. They answer the calls from end users and are often referred to as level 1 support. You can choose to have a level 1.5 or a level 2 group on the service desk as well, which may be staffed by more experienced agents and who can resolve a larger number of calls on the first shot. You'll also have a service desk supervisor, and that's the person who manages the service desk on a day-to-day basis. In larger organizations, you may have an additional level of supervision called the service desk manager, and this person is especially helpful if you have more than one service desk. Speaking of service desk agents, one of the nice things about working on a service desk is that you get a lot of exposure and insight into the many different areas of your organization. So the service desk can be a great springboard if you want to move on to other IT teams as your career progresses. You'll need to remember that for the exam. To quickly recap, in this lesson, we learned about ITIL's 4 functions. A function is a self-contained unit of an organization that is specialized to handle a certain type of work. Now, don't get your processes and your functions confused. Just because some of these terms end in management, don't think of them as processes, because functions are teams or groups of people. Our 4 functions are technical management, application management, IT operations management, which is made up of 2 little subgroups, IT operations control and facilities management. And don't forget, sometimes on the exam they leave off the IT, and the service desk.